Good evening. This is a meeting of the Athens Board of Zoning Appeals. The time is 7 p.m. and the date is January 10, 2017. At this time, I will call the meeting to order. The board consists of 5 members and 2 alternates, the alternates taking full part in the discussions and becoming a voting member in the absence of a member or when a member abstains for conflict of interest. Present tonight are members Ms. Betty Hollow, Ms. Kay Towsley, Ms. Joan Krajnanski, and our alternate is Mr. Ed Baum, who would be a voting member tonight. I am John Golsey, the chair. Also present, we have the zoning administrator, Mr. Rick Sorois. At this time, I invite you to view a pre-recorded video on the rules and procedures of the board.
The Athens Board of Zoning Appeals operates according to the following procedure. The chair will name and describe the case. The zoning administrator or secretary will state the basis of the objection and any applicable facts or conditions pertaining to the case. The appellant or their representative will give reason why the appeal should be viewed favorably. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in general comment will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be heard. If necessary, the appellant or their representative will offer concluding, summary, or rebuttal remarks. Testimony from the floor shall be closed. The board will deliberate and render a decision. According to Athens City Code, section 23.07.03b, the board has power to grant variances from the strict application of the code, provided the variance will not be contrary to the public interest, the spirit of the code is observed, public safety and welfare are secured, and substantial justice is done. According to Athens City Code, section 23.07.10c, variances from the code shall not be granted unless the board makes specific findings of fact based directly on the particular evidence presented to it, that the standards and conditions imposed in this title, if applicable, have been met by the applicant. Exceptional circumstances. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes or uses in the same zone. Practical difficulty and undue hardship. Because of exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions pertaining to a specific piece of property, a literal enforcement of these regulations will result in practical difficulty or undue hardship that is unnecessary to the achievement of public purposes. Preservation of equal property rights. Literal interpretation of these regulations would deprive the appellant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same zone and the same vicinity, while a granting of the requested variance will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied to other properties in the same zone and the same vicinity. Minimum variance. The variance granted is the minimum variance required to make possible the reasonable use of the property. Absence of detriment. The authorizing of such variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the purpose of the zoning code or the public interest. Not of a general nature. The condition or situation of the specific piece of property or the intended use of said property for which variance is sought, one or the other or in combination, is not of so general or recurrent a nature as to make reasonably practicable the formulation of a general regulation for such condition or situation. Any person, resident, or officer, department, or appointed body of the City of Athens, aggrieved by a decision of the board, may petition the Athens County Court of Common Pleas concerning the illegality of the decision. Such petition must be filed within 30 days after the mailing of the decision of the board to the applicant. Thank you.
In addition to what you heard, the board also has the power to hear requests for conditionally permitted uses, and we do have one of those tonight. There are 4 cases on tonight's agenda. Case number 16-13V, 2065 East Estate Street, which was tabled from last month. Case 16-15V, the property at 41 2nd Street. And case number 1701V, lot 1703 at Ringa Street. And the last case is 1702C, property at 1 Westfield Place. The board is required to take testimony under oath. Would anyone wishing to speak concerning any item on the agenda please stand? Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you will present to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please be seated. Thank you. Okay, case number 1 again, the appellants are not here. It was tabled from last time, and the board can make a decision whether to dismiss the case or table it again. So, yes, sir.
I move to table the case.
Second.
Wow.
All in favor, raise your hands. Okay, the case is tabled for another time. Case number 16-15V, property at 41 2nd Street, Zone R1. Deborah Anderson is the appellant. Appellant is requesting a variance from ACC 23-1001, Table A, a schedule of bulk controls to allow an addition to a building with a right side setback of 5 feet, 3 inches, where 8 feet, 2 inches is the minimum requirement, and to allow maximum lot coverage of 39%, where 30% is the maximum allowed. Mr. Sorois, any comments you need?
No, just.
Okay. Any questions for the code office?
No.
Ms. Anderson, you may come to the podium over there. State your name and your address for the records, and state your case.
Deborah Anderson at 41 2nd Street, Athens. I'd first like to thank everybody for listening tonight, coming out in the rain. I submitted a packet with my argument in it, and I just wanted to make sure everybody was able to read that. Additionally, I have 2 letters that I need to submit, in addition to the ones that I submitted earlier.
Now, we have 4 in here already.
Okay. I have one from Steve and Monica Hayes,
Okay.
also, and they live on Curran, but they own the house that's adjacent and across the street. Should I submit that to you now?
Can maybe give it to Kay and then.
And I also have another letter from my neighbor, Michael McSteen, and he's here tonight with his letter. In addition to what I submitted to you regarding reasons that I felt that I needed the walkway and porch area, I didn't mention that in the R1 zoning that the side yard with both, the combination of both was a 20 feet total on the schedule of bulk controls. And I wanted just to point out that I'm pretty close to that with what I have. I have 19 feet and 3 inches. So it's, with both combined, it's just, I'm what, 9 inches short or something like that. So I just wanted to point that out. I also wanted to show you some photographs of the structure. got glue, everything's sticking together here. I have pictures from the front, then the side, and then also from the back. I apologize for my
That's okay.
color's not very good.
I wanted to thank you for having a really complete package in here. It's very, very comprehensive.
Oh, thank you.
I saw this online. That's a little space to sit in.
So just kind of for my short summary, I feel like I have a very awkward division of my property, which a lot of people do on the west side of town. It's the oldest part of town, so I know zoning laws were different back when everything was built. I really needed to do what I did because of the deterioration of what's underneath it. It was falling apart. It was creating water problems for me. And actually, in talking to some neighbors, they suggested, why don't you build something over it and put a roof? And I thought, great idea. So I went ahead and did that, not knowing that I would need a variance. And unfortunately, the contractor told me I wouldn't need a permit. And so I went ahead and did it, not knowing. Lesson learned. But the roof, too, for me, with the walkway, is providing safety for me. I get a lot of ice buildup, and I have fallen, and I have injured myself twice. So the roof over the walkway does prevent that. It's helped with the water coming into my basement along that side of the house. And as far as the 39% of structures on my building, I have a very large, what was a barn at one time, and that takes up so much space on my property. It doesn't really allow for any outdoor space. And I was hoping that you would consider that I do own the lot behind that building. However, it's not real usable because it's a hill. The structure, I believe, enhances my property, and it looks nice. My neighbors agree with that. It's not quite finished. I decided until I heard from you and had your decision that I wouldn't do anything else with it. It needs to be stained. There needs to be a finishing piece above what I'm calling the privacy doorway. And there also needs to be a finishing piece on the bottom to continue to try to stop more water from coming down from the front yard. I also would like to put a lock on that privacy door also, just for extra security. I mentioned in that packet too that I have had an attempted break-in on that side of my house. So that's why I decided to do the privacy type wall and door so that it was less obvious from the street. I think that's about it.
You already answered one of my questions. You said that it's not quite complete. You're not going to add any more area to the,
No,
okay, just
That's all
the minor
complete.
things.
Yeah, just kind of, just the aesthetics of
Okay,
it.
okay. All right, you may be seated, and you can come back again if there is a need for it. At this point, I would like to ask anyone wishing to speak on behalf of this variance, this request. Please come to the podium, state your name and your address for the records, please.
Hello, my name is Michael McSteen. I live at 32 2nd Street, which is directly across the street from 41. I've been a resident of 2nd Street since '98 and lived in 32 2nd Street since 2007 and have known Deborah since that time and so forth. I wasn't able to submit a letter previously, so I wanted to get here tonight and I can read it since I didn't make copies and so forth. Attention Boarding Zone of Appeals, John Golsey,
Yes.
Chair. This letter is on behalf of the appellant Deborah Anderson, 41 Second Street, Athens, case number 16-15V, and it's in favor of her request for variance regarding the building addition to 41 Second Street. I approve of the addition of the side porch for her property. I believe it adds value to her home, the property, and the neighborhood. The structure is very nicely constructed and allows improved access for herself and visitors to her home. I've spoken with Deborah about this matter, and I understand that she was unaware of the city code requirements, and that she thought that her contractor assured her that the project would meet current code requirements. Because I think, and this is not in the letter, but I think that what the contractor was looking at is that the property to the west of Deborah's at 43?
Yes.
Has a little retaining wall that kind of looks like the border which might be the border for her, and I think it's off. So I think he may have measured to that retaining wall, which is why I think he made that mistake. Deborah Anderson is a very good person and a very good neighbor, and I know that she would not intentionally ignore the city code. She has taken very good care of her property. It's always well maintained. She has recently made improvements, such as exterior painting to the outside, interior restoration after some water damage, and some landscaping. That clearly demonstrates that she is concerned about her property's value. I support Deborah Anderson in her request for variance in this case. I also wanted to add that, I don't know if the pictures really do justice to it, but to me, I think that, it has to pass the eye test. You have to go out there and say, is it, ungodly structure and really, denying access around the property and anything, which I don't think it is. I actually think it adds curb appeal and adds to the value of the property. And we all want that for our neighborhood. And I think that what she has done and in the other improvements certainly belie the fact that she wants to improve the value, and that this was not a structure that was lightly thought out or anything. She put some care into constructing it and nice materials. It's going to last a long time, and it will look really good once it's weathered and so forth. So I think it's actually an improvement. And I'll go ahead and give this to you.
It will look even better after the staining, maybe.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And he said you are a good person, so you have it on the records that he said that in the future.
She is, she's delightful.
I forgot to ask the board if they had any questions for Ms. Anderson. No?
No.
Okay. Anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this proposal? Okay. Please come to the podium, state your name and your address, please.
My name's Eric Lee. I live at 51 Madison Avenue in Athens. I don't know her, but it sounds like she's put together a good case. She seems like she's met all the requirements to get it passed. It seems like there was definitely an undue hardship, in part caused by her contractor. It seems like there are exceptional circumstances. It seems like she's requesting the minimum variance because, in part, the structure is already built, and it seems like the structure doesn't impose any burden on any other person's right to property. So I'm also in support of it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? At this point, anyone wishing to speak in general regarding this proposal? Or anyone wishing to speak in opposition, please come forward. No? Okay. Anything else you want to add? Okay, all right. We close the discussion from the floor. And any discussions on board? Should we wait for a minute before Joan comes back? We can discuss.
One of the problems of the code, as most people recognize, that most of the properties in the central part of the city do not meet the 8,000 square feet requirement. My own property is about 5,000 square feet. I have a side setback on one side of 0 and a side setback on the other side of about 4 feet. So that when you have a property that is smaller than the 8,000, and especially a configuration such as this, you've got to be a little bit flexible in terms of requirements. And that's something that maybe city council will address someday. Mr. McSteen and I know about problems with city council. That not every property in the city fits the model that the code assumes. And I
That
think
is
we
why
have to
they
take that into
have
account.
us.
Pardon?
That's why they have us.
Mr. Inansky, do you have any questions for the appellant since you were?
No, I read through all the documents, looked at the pictures.
Okay.
Actually did an on-site look. So,
Okay,
no, I'm good.
because- Okay, good.
Thank you.
All right, anyone who wants to make a motion?
Yes, I move that we grant variances to the property at 41 Second Street from ACC 211001, Table A, Schedule of Bulk Controls, to allow an addition to a building with a right side setback of 5 feet 3 inches, where 8 feet 2 inches is a minimum requirement, and to allow maximum lot coverage of 39%, where 30% is the maximum allowed.
I second.
Okay, second. All right, let's go through the findings. Exceptional circumstances.
I think that has to do
Yeah.
with the width and size of the lot, which is unchangeable.
Okay, same. Practical difficulty and undue hardship.
Well, I think if she can't have this little addition to her house, she will continue to have a hardship of rain pouring in and no way to maneuver. It's one of the smallest lots I know about in width.
Preservation of equal property rights. Are we granting more privilege to this property than others
No,
in the
because
same vicinity, or?
other people who had this
Zone.
side lot would probably come to us and probably also get a variance.
Yeah,
So it's
okay.
not acceptable.
Is this minimum variance?
Yes,
Yes.
Absence of detriment.
there's no.
Yes.
no
It's
detriment.
actually improvement, I guess. Not of a general nature.
No.
No.
Those of you in favor of the variance, please raise your hand. We have 5-0. You have the variance. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to case 3. See, I told you it's going to take 40 minutes. Case number 1702C, 1701V, lot 1703 Ring Street. Zone is R1. Michael Rinaldi Eichenberg. Yeah. Appellant. Appellant is requesting a variance from ACC 231001, Table A, Schedule of Bulk Controls, to allow construction of a building with a rear setback of 15 feet, where 30 feet is the minimum requirement. And we have had this case before, and you want to add anything more to it?
Yes, I looked at the previous cases, and the first one was 2005 02B. It was DeLuca, the rear setback. It was granted and approved on May 17th in 2005. And that was a setback of 10 feet where 30 feet was permitted as a minimum. And the next one was the, just recently, 2016-03B as in Victor and Mr. Ron White. Again, it was a rear setback, but that one was withdrawn.
Okay.
Thank you.
Were there not some complications with the very first one? I mean, if it was approved, weren't there some other actions that occurred so that the variance did not go through?
Not for the first one, not that I recall reading. The second one, there was some dispute on how the house was going to be built because of the sewer from the city engineer. Requested a sewer easement for this property, but the way that the building was to be positioned, the driveway was to be positioned, it was going to be over the sewer, the clay tile sanitary sewer. and it was requiring the driveway to be at least 6 inches thick. And that, I seem to recall that that was too much for that appellant at that time. That's why he withdrew.
Okay.
Has that been resolved? The sewer problem?
Not that I know of.
No.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Well, one quick question. Did you give us this photo? I'm assuming red lines are contour lines? Okay. And is there an indication, oh, obviously not, right? Well, the city right-of-way, I'm trying to determine, I guess it's the black line
be a
that
black
is.
line.
Okay, I think I.
You got it? You got it?
Yeah, so
Okay.
this would be the city right-of-way coming, actually almost right across the house that's sitting next to this piece of property we're looking at tonight.
If I may approach.
Sure.
Sorry.
So this would be the city right-of-way, this here, correct? And that'd be one side of it, this would be the other side of it, correct?
Correct, right here.
Okay, so it pretty much runs along the property line.
Correct.
Actually, it cuts right across the front of that house. Oh my gosh.
These things are not always 100%.
Okay.
These lines, so
Okay.
I would not base my faith on this line.
Okay,
But that's what you can see, it's been repositioned, he's taken into consideration the sewer line.
okay.
But before you go, so how does this one differ from the one that?
Position of the house.
Position is different.
Okay.
It's not going to be
Okay.
over the sewer
Okay,
line.
all right.
Any other questions for the board, for the code office? Mr. Eichenberg, you may come to the podium and state your name and your address, and state your case, please.
Hello, my name is Michael Rinaldi Eichenberg, 7250 Roundhouse Road, New Marshfield. So I'm here to propose building a owner-occupied home on this lot on Ring Street, about 800 square feet, as you can see in the plans. And as you stated already, I'm requesting a variance on the rear setback, 15 feet where 30 feet is the requirement. So there are two constraining factors in terms of placement of the house. One is the fact that the lot is small and triangular in shape. The other is that there's a sanitary sewer line that, as I understand, is also connected to a storm sewer line that runs through that front corner. I've been in contact with Andy Stone, and I showed this to John. Would it be helpful?
Mm-hmm.
Share this. And this shows the location of the sewer that runs through the corner of the property that needs to be replaced, as I understand.
Does that mean it will be replaced?
Andy Stone has not made a guarantee to me, but he said he hopes to replace it this summer, 2017.
They have a project called the North Congress Street Project. They will be replacing that sanitary storm sewer line that runs from the top of North Congress along the city right-of-way here and across there and in the ravine behind North Congress and Mountain. That's all one big project. It's quite an adventure. They've postponed it already a year, 2 years. They're anticipating doing it, and that's part of this system.
Well, then is your request precipitous, and maybe you should wait until they do replace it in case they have to dig up your house if you go ahead and build it, and then they try to replace it?
As I understand, so they have flags on the property. As I understand it, as long as I'm behind those flags, I wouldn't be in the way. And I think Andy would have mentioned that to me. But again, I think that would have come up, but I can't give a certain answer to that.
Well, I might mention that property at the far end of Mound Street, the rear property, or the back of the property, which is part of that system, had a break 2 years ago, and they were forced to dig it up. And I can't recall how deep it was, but the pile of dirt that they took up in height was taller than me, and the width of it had to be at least 10 feet. So if you're behind those flags are where that storm sewer is, but then your house is so adjacent to it, they had, and I just would caution you, having seen that situation, that it could really affect your structure, depending on what kind of foundation you're putting in. I just,
I assume once he gets the variance in here, he will go to the code office and they will take care of all those technical issues, right?
well, this is not technical, I'm just
Well,
trying to explain to
yeah.
him experience that I had on Mount Street, I live on Mount Street, with a break that they had to fix. We're hoping not to fix in anticipation of doing this project, but they were forced to because it was so much breakage going on, and they replaced this pipe, and it's part of that system, the sanitary and the storm sewer system, and it was a massive hole they had to dig to get to that. So I would just caution you on that.
Sure, and I appreciate that. I should add that the flags are not directly over the center of the line either. They're set back probably about 10 feet, and that's just to one side, so they're.
Oh, I've inspected it several times, right?
But again, right, your point is valid, and sure, your advice is appreciated. It sounds like that's maybe a separate step of the process, deciding that, than what we're.
Well, they have to issue you a permit, you know, I'm sure they will address that then.
Okay. Let's see, my arguments in favor of this, as someone who's planning on building an owner-occupied home, I think that is in my favor. I'm not planning on building a rental. I'm hoping to stay in the area. Obviously, I wouldn't be going through building a new house just for the fun of it. There is the property line that I'm requesting the variance for borders a city right-of-way. So in that sense, I'm not encroaching on someone else's property. I still understand the rule is the rule. The total lot size is smaller than 6,000 square feet, so it's a pretty small lot. The fact that it's a triangle too makes it difficult to meet all of these setbacks. The fact that a 10-foot rear setback was previously approved, where I'm asking for 15. Again, I think that's in my favor. I'm aware of the sewer issue that we've already discussed. I've spoken with the neighbors who seem to be bearing the brunt of that sewer issue. And, right, I haven't gotten a commitment that that line will be replaced. I'm not an engineer, I don't know what that's gonna take. But all I know is that the plan is to do that in 2017. Ideally, that could happen before I even start building, but I don't know all those details. I think that's.
Okay,
that's all I have.
I actually looked at your lot and the line of the sewer line. I think the way you have positioned, it seems to be one of the only options, so there's not a whole lot of option. Any questions for the appellant?
No.
No? Okay, you may be seated for now. Is there anyone who would like to speak on behalf? Okay, yes? I know you said your name before, but just do it again, please, for the record.
My name's Eric Lee, I live at 51 Madison Avenue, and I'm the current owner of the lot in question.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I remember you from last time.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So to address the specific issues, for the practical difficulty due to undue hardship, it is a unique shaped lot, and there is an unused city right-of-way behind it, and we've actually talked to the chief of the fire department, and he has said that there's no chance that they would ever use it for any emergency purpose. It's just unusable at this point. For exceptional circumstances, I think he did a pretty good job of covering that. preservation of equal property rights without the code variance. I don't think there'd be any way to have equal property rights for that section of property. And as the board members have mentioned before, with small, unique shaped lots, that's the only way that we can really get equal property rights. Minimum variance, as you've just mentioned, the way that he has intelligently positioned the house in question, it seems like the only way it can be done, and it's definitely tempting to be just the very minimum variance that's possible. And it's definitely not of general nature, so those are.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for him? You're learning quite a bit about the zoning, huh? Okay, anyone else who would like to speak on behalf of this proposal? Anyone in general commentary, or anyone who wish to speak in opposition? Okay, and I also remember you, sir, from last time, so please state your name again and your address.
My name is William Dombrowski. I live at 17 Ring Street, and I'm here for the annual Ring Street debacle. I surely hope this is the last time anyone has to come before the board and address this issue. The reason this issue exists is the lack of due diligence on the real estate agents. That is not a separate lot. That lot belongs to the structure adjacent to it. The only reason it looks like it's a lot is because about 70, 80 years ago, the person had to show that right-of-way where the road used to go through there. That back lot line there only exists for that purpose. The land actually goes with the house. And I heard you talking about a map you had where you said, well, that lot line goes right across the front of the house.
Right.
Well, the only reason it goes there is it's just showing a property right away for the city. If you do not have that there, you essentially landlock that house. That house, without that adjacent property that we're talking about, landlocks the house. They have no way to get into the house. They have no way to park their cars or anything. They need that little piece of triangle to have a front yard. And that's what it, for the past at least 60 or 70 years, has functioned as their front yard. So I hope that there's some way of straightening this out so that we don't keep going through this every time someone wants to make a buck there.
Well, the adjacent property, doesn't it have access to Ring Street?
No. Not when the city right-of-way goes across the front of that building,
You'll see
it
that.
cuts it off. And then this little triangle comes down the end there.
Here's the right of way.
If you take that away, then you landlock that property.
Here's the right of way. You like block that whole house in without.
It should have never been removed.
Cottage in the woods back behind it somehow.
Yeah.
Well, my question is then, how does Mr. Lee have a deed to the property if it's not really a lot? How did he come to have a deed for it?
Maybe you should ask him.
Well, we will.
I think it's all in error. I think it's a misreading of the graphics, and the research hasn't been done on the project. If you go there and look at it, it's obvious.
That's right.
Well, I did go and look at it.
Right
I think
here.
we all did.
And then
Good.
Eric Lee still owns
You
this
see what
piece
I
of
mean, where it
property.
comes, it
So
takes
that
up the
house is
whole
like-
front of that house.
That
Right.
house sits
There's
right
no way to get into it.
Mess.
Yeah, it's
No,
a mess.
because there's a bank, you can't go that way. There are trees, you can't go this way. And if this house is in front of it, you're right, I'm not sure how they quite get out. Unless they
Well, they
go,
have a parking lot there at the house now. It's actually on the city right away. So it's not a legal parking lot.
And actually, the city does come and cut the grass and has cut trees down up there because it is their right of way. In the last 3 or 4 years, they've done that. So the city does do some maintenance up there.
Yeah.
Maybe not enough, but yeah, definitely on that right of way area. Right in front of the house, actually.
So I think that supersedes anything. But there are other problems, and it has to do with, you put that structure in there, it's gonna be a dam to all the water coming down that hill there. And there's a considerable amount of drainage that comes down through there. You have to realize that that valley is what you might call the Highland Valley drainage system. It starts all the way up past Highland Park, comes all the way down through that valley, plus what's on the Madison Avenue Hill comes right down behind there. And then everything that's on the North Congress side uses this street as a creek, and all the water comes down in that way and empties into that lot. And the water gets quite high in there. And I can't see building any structure in there. It's gonna cause more problems for each lot owner on each side. And if that big drainage system ever would happen to get broken or fall in there, that would back up clear to the dam, which is North Congress, and could cause all kinds of damage, particularly to my property and others, if it breaks. So that drainage system is a large one, covers a great deal of area, and is not to be taken lightly. And thank you very much for your time. I hope I don't see you back here next year. Thank you.
Any questions before he leaves? Okay, you may be seated. Any other person who would like to speak in opposition? And Mr. Eichenberg and Mr. Lee, maybe for you first, if you want to make any comments or rebuttal comments.
Just to address the drainage issue, I've spoken with the neighbors, again, who bear the brunt of the sanitary sewer / storm sewer combined lines. I know that there's a storm drain at a low spot between the property I'm proposing to build on and theirs, and that the water goes out. They said, yeah, I mean, drainage is not a huge issue. If it were, I obviously wouldn't want to build there and wouldn't be going through all of these steps. So the problem is with the sewer line, as I understand it, the storm sewers and sanitary sewer line, all of that water, storm and sanitary combined, floods the pipes and ultimately their basement. That's not a problem that I want to contribute to, and again, that the issue of the line being replaced comes into play there. And again, I couldn't hook into that until it's replaced, but it sounds like that's a complication that's maybe...
Can you address that question that came up about being landlocked?
As I understand it, so the neighbor's driveway does cross the tip.
The tip of the triangle.
Right, and I've looked at that. I'm sure there's some sort of legal way to, I'm not sure all the lingo and how that works, but I'm sure that's a relatively common thing where your neighbor grants you an easement
Right,
to use a corner of the property as a driveway since it's already there. And,
Okay, thank you.
I do have a
Sure,
question.
yeah, sure, go ahead.
You said you wouldn't be able to tap into the sewer line until it was replaced?
I could, having spoken with the neighbors though, and understanding that would exacerbate their problem. In an effort to be a good neighbor, I wouldn't want to contribute to that problem. If the line needs to be replaced, and adding another house to that is going to make their problem worse, I don't want to.
So you know a variance is only valid for 1 year?
Correct. So I have a year to begin construction, as I understand it, right?
And if the pipes aren't replaced, the sanitary and the storms aren't replaced this year, then that kind of puts you in a bind.
My plan was that if I get a variance, I would try to get a concrete answer from Andy Stone and he may still not be able to give me one. There are a lot of steps, right?
Oh,
building a house
absolutely.
in
I've
the
been
city.
talking to him about that project because it affects my property also.
Sure. And so, to me, getting a variance is one of the steps that if I'm granted a variance, it doesn't mean that I'm going to start construction tomorrow, but it's another step towards building there.
And purchasing of this property is dependent on the variance?
Correct. Any other questions?
Yes, I just want to make one comment. We're talking about the storm sewer and the sanitary sewer, and we're talking as if all the water that comes off of the hill goes into the storm sewer, which of course is not true. The water is just simply, in addition to that, pouring down the hill. And this property ends in basically a big ditch. Right?
It's not, where I would be building is not the lowest spot. But
Nevertheless, there's going to be a large collection of water there for you and for the neighbor near you. And I'm also concerned here about who this property really belongs to if Mr. Dombrowski is correct. And it really should be a part of the house that's already there, and that somehow that might need to get straightened out, particularly for Mr. Lee, who thinks he owns it and may not.
Well, he actually owns the adjacent property. But it makes it, then this house is totally out of compliance. My understanding is this house is up for sale also, so it's very complicated.
Yeah, okay.
I think I understand the property division part of it, but I'll let Eric speak to that.
Okay.
He'd probably be better.
Okay.
But yes, point well taken. It is in a valley of sorts.
Yes.
Having visited there a couple of times,
Of a real sort.
I don't think it's in a low enough spot that it's not in the lowest of the low
It's
spots.
at the bottom of the hill.
It is, but there is still a slope down to
Well,
it.
historically, has it been any flooding back down there?
This will be a great week
There has
to
to
hang out
be.
there and
We can maybe
find out.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
So we took pictures in the spring when there was a flood watch, and we were expected to get about an inch of rain in 3 hours. And so my wife braved the rain and took some pictures. Do you mind if I approach and show you?
Okay, sure.
We have not ever seen any actual standing water. It's moist and damp, but there's never been any standing water. So that was right after the flood watch. Also, we are not in a flood zone. We do not require flood insurance,
Okay.
special flood insurance.
Sure, no, I understand that.
So there's gardens there, people have raised beds, so they're,
Yeah, I built those years ago. And then there's the flood watch.
You'd like to leave this with us? You can have the pictures, but.
so this is where the property line would cut the house right off.
Sir, has there been historically any flooding
look at-
in that area?
I've lived there 50 years, I've seen that water totally, that ground, totally underwater. From the hill to the street, and running like a river to the house next door. And then it goes down the valley there. And, you know, it doesn't happen every year, but sometimes you get the circumstances just right, and it's a gusher that comes down through there. There's some adjacent properties that have had their driveways washed out because of the water.
I have never personally seen that. I lived there for years, and I haven't seen it. I can't speak to if it's ever happened in the
You
last
have lived for
50 or
50
60
years,
years. But that being said, if it does flood like that, it would be equal property usage at that point, since he said it floods the neighbors too, which again, I've never personally seen. But I don't know if that I mean, you guys are the experts, but I don't know if that would necessarily affect whether or not a variance should be granted. Because if anything, we're just asking for equal use of the land as all the neighbors And as far as the different lots, they were all purchased at the same time when I bought Ring Street. And it's a total of 4 lots. I don't know if you guys have the.
Wait, so 2 of them are hillside, 1 is where the house is, and then the 3rd is this triangular lot.
The base of that is pretty flat, but it does turn into the hillside for that triangle section. And then that's fairly flat there, but the backside of that does go up a hill for both of the square lots.
Oh, so this lot, is this where the house is?
The house that's there now is right there.
Okay, the house is there, and then,
That's,
it looks like it's a little different on these maps that we got from the, let's see if I can. Okay, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4.
and if the city wanted to give me the driveway, I could get rid of the easement problem and take care of the setbacks, no problem.
City doesn't often give away land.
Okay, can you show me that? So the house is where?
The house is right there,
Okay,
and
I see.
the cars are, well, they're usually, it's a little bit lower, but parked there. I'm not 100% sure if those lines perfectly line up with everything, but it's pretty
Okay.
close. You want that?
No, thank you.
Do you guys have any other questions for me?
Crazy.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else in opposition? Okay, we close the discussion from the floor.
No, I have a question for the code administrator.
But, yeah, you can.
And it has to do with the parking. As far as I can tell, even though the house is at an angle, the parking is sitting in the front setback. Half of the parking is sitting in the front setback. And that would be a bad precedent.
Yes.
I had a lot of difficulty when I looked at that. So,
One question?
the lot in question that we're reviewing tonight. Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah. So 230801 AB, right? Sitting right in the front setback of the house. So that parking lot could not go, it would have to be moved over at least 10 feet. So if that's 20 feet across, it looks like it's about half. And that might put it right on top of the,
What is the setback line here?
well, this front of the house, that you can't put the parking in the front setback of the house. Here's the front of the house. I mean, I'm assuming that's the front of the house. Right, okay. So here's the parking, it's right in the front yard. It's like putting parking in the front yard. And
Within the 25 feet that is required? Is that what you're saying? I mean, the parking could be right by the street, right? Mr. Saros?
Yes.
no.
Well, this is the street.
City
right?
right away, you can't park in the city right away, or I'd have a parking spot on top of the hill, right in the city right away. But, I mean, number one, you can't park in the city right away, but if this was your driveway, but if it was off to the side, if the house was flush, that's why in the other diagram where the house was straight flush, parallel to the road, the driveway went along the side, because you couldn't put the
Right.
driveway in front of the house. And what I'm saying on this diagram, the driveway is directly in front of the house. Well, 50% of it is, so.
I assume, maybe you can correct me, I assume that the gravel parking is where you put the park. There is no driveway besides that, is it? There is no more driveway.
Correct, that's the parking.
So you just park the car right there, there is no driveway to the house?
But that is their driveway.
Well,
It
that's-
is,
yeah.
you can't, it would be like if this was your house, John, like this, and here's the street, and you parked your car right here, that's totally illegal. You can't do that. Read the code, I'll read it. 230801 AB, right? You can't park in the front setback. That's the front setback of the house. The house has to be set back so far from the street. And so you cannot, I mean, there's a few grandfathered around the neighborhood. There's
Right.
one on Pine. there's one on Mound, but basically, you can't park in the front setback of the house.
Well, there's a
you
house was
sure?
built on Mulligan Road just last year, the famous red house, and they parked like within, just right on the street, like 2 feet from the street, from the Mulligan Road, and I've seen a bunch more, and maybe he can clarify.
The question is, what is the setback on Mulligan? I have no idea what the setback
Right.
on
Well,
Mulligan is.
this is
It would
parked
be what it
within
is
2 feet
everywhere.
from the Mulligan Road.
Yeah, but that,
Yeah.
depending upon the property lines, that may
Well,
or may
yeah.
not be the
Yeah.
setback.
He's taking a look. While we're waiting, could you, sir, could you come to the board here for a second?
What were you looking at again, Ms. Kronansky?
Oh, number?
Yeah.
230801 AB.
If I could respond to that.
I assume, okay, you can respond. I assume that there's other options that you can maybe extend the driveway and park further out, so, but let's see what he has for us first. And then we can go to the podium. What was the number again, Joe? Maybe I can take a look.
230801 AB.
2301.
2308.
230801.
Right, that's right.
It's under B, exclusive hard surface driveways where parking is permitted as reference, et cetera, et cetera. Off-street parking areas or parking structures for residential structures shall not be located between the required setback line and the right-of-way line. And corner lots are, yeah, I mean. It's just that, there was an issue over on Grosvenor and a code officer, it's been a long time ago, made the mistake of approving a front yard parking area and the owner immediately cemented it and there it was and they couldn't take it back. And then we had a lot of problems because,
Well,
Would you like to address that, please?
Sure.
it's not part of the,
So, quick question. The reason for this rule is obviously to keep cars off the street or from encroaching on the street, I would imagine.
no, to keep cars from parking in front yards in residential areas.
And, okay, so, again, I think because of the nature of the lot, really anywhere
Just to
I put the
maintain the
parking
setbacks, I
is
guess.
gonna sort of look like my front yard. It's not a very big yard.
No, come here, come
Anyway.
look at your drawing. You can see where the side of your house is. This is all I'm saying. I'm assuming this is the front of your house, right? Correct?
Right.
Is that where the front door is that,
The door's gonna be here.
so which side is the front of your house? I guess you have
Oh, I
to,
would just, I guess
You would
because of
assume that
the
this would
orientation
be-
of the street here, I would just kind of call this the front. I don't know that, if I'm gonna choose one of the four sides, I guess
well, you
that
could
would
put
be-
it over here then.
I could, but, I mean,
I'm just
we're getting
saying,
into semantics. Isn't this all the front yard?
no, here's the side of your house, right? This is the side of your house. So you park on the side of your house. If you look at driveways around residential neighborhoods, they pull in along the side of the house.
Yeah, that's what I suggested, somewhere in here. You can
Right,
pull in
yeah,
and then
exactly.
park over.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying, but you can't locate it there. That would be a bad precedent setting.
And he only needs
okay,
two
may I
spaces.
suggest that since this has come up, and since it is not part of the variance in front
Right.
of us,
Right.
and if he wants to address that, you'll have to go to the code office again, present a different
That's-
variance that includes
That's correct.
something about the driveway, And I think there's some other issues that maybe you need to talk more to Andy. But I think we can't vote on this tonight if that's going to be part of the problem.
Or if you would like to wait maybe till next month to get these
Exactly.
questions answered, we can table it.
But if this setback thing is an issue, and apparently it is, then you need a variance that includes that, and it's not in front of us, and it has to be advertised, so you would have to come back to us.
Can as a compromise, can I get some, even if it's not official, if it's off the record, whatever that means? Can I get
You are on the record right now, so.
Yeah, you are on the record. We are on live
We can all
TV.
just duck down and you guys can tell me. No, is there, and you can tell me no, and that's fine.
Let me ask the code officer, if he wants to amend the variance, does it have to go through the application and pay a fee again? Or can we just change
Is
it?
that what you're asking?
My
That's not what
question-
he's asking.
My question was
John.
going to be.
No, I know, but I want to ask just for,
He wants to know how we feel about this at the moment.
No, we don't do deals. We
one second.
Really quickly, my question was just, can I get a sense of whether the rear setback variance would be granted? And if you can't tell me that, then that's.
No, we can't,
We
we
can't
can't.
without a vote with going through the findings. We can't do that.
Okay.
It seems to me that the question is, he's asking for a variance on the rear setback. There's no discussion in here of the parking. And if the code office determines that that parking is not where it should be, then he'd have to come back and get a separate variance.
Right.
That's correct.
That's,
You could
that's
do
a
that.
question which is still to come up.
That's correct.
And I think all we're being asked to do is take a look at the question of the rear setback.
Which one we have right now.
That's correct.
Okay, we could do
That's why I
that.
didn't want to comment.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess that resolved the issue. Okay, thanks. So, we have a variance that we need to consider, and that is pretty clear. Anybody would like to discuss further or make a motion?
I just want to make sure that I'm clear in my mind the concerns that Mr. Dombrowski has raised. It seems that most of them have to do more with making sure that you understand what might happen when, you know, the weather gets really bad and flooding happens. But, so it's more sort of paternalistic, like just be aware as opposed to a requirement, does it meet code or not? Am I right as far as that goes? I mean, I'm trying to decide in my mind, if I have concerns because Mr. Dombrowski has raised them, but they're not particularly relevant to our narrow,
Well, we
Mission.
always we listen to the audience who are opposing or in favor, and we do put those in consideration. So when you make your judgment, you may consider that. Although we are narrowly looking at this variance for the setback in the back.
right. So even if there was an 80% probability of huge floods for the next 10 years,
Yeah.
we might decide that's not on us to worry about, that's for you guys.
Right.
I think Mr. Dombrowski is also talking, as he did the last time this came up, about not just this particular property, but the neighborhood in general, because the water that comes down off of the hill and affects everybody in that area. So once you put up another property that tends to either interfere with that flow or contribute to that non-flow, I think he's talking about a larger issue than just aesthetics.
Well, I think I would like to speak to the other issue that Mr. Dombrowski brought up, and it was something that I mentioned the last time this piece of property came up for a variance, and that is the particular size of the lots and how they're cut off. And I had not realized that that property line to the house on the adjacent property is literally cut off at the front door, and this triangle piece of property if it's correct, what Mr. Dombrowski is alluding to was actually part of that house, the property that house sits on. What I had said at the last hearing we had, because I live in the area, that the way that land lays there, it's so hilly and peculiar and little valleys and nooks that most people have more than one lot, one full-size lot, have 2 or 3. I actually have 2.5, and they're very long lots. I think mine's 200 some feet, right? Just because of the way the land lays around there, and this is part of that whole geographic area. And so I find it troubling that now we have this little square piece of property that we're gonna try and utilize, and then we have a house sitting on a piece of property that now actually will have no space to move around outside physically. It just seems like we're cutting up little pieces of splinters to be able to move property, and it just is so common in that area to see just the exact opposite in play. So I guess I wanted to say that.
Okay, we also have to justify the use of the property, and this seems to be minimum to me, that they should be able to develop it. They have the right to do that, so that's what we need to
Well, you
consider
do have
also.
the right to do that,
Yeah.
but when you starting, it's maybe encroachment, I'm not sure, right? When this piece of property, the development of it then encroaches on something that's already established, sometimes it's difficult. That's a large encroachment.
Well, I see a property in there with a name and a number on it, so I assume it's not encroaching.
Right, I'm
If it does,
assuming
yeah.
that when Mr. Lee lived there, he did say that he built those raised beds. I didn't know who built those raised beds. So he obviously used that piece of property for his yard with those raised beds on there. I don't know the people who live there now, but they still use those beds, so. They do. They do. So they will no longer use those beds because that property no longer is part of their, I'm assuming they rent. I'm not sure.
They're hoping to purchase.
So do they know they have no front yard?
They have a front yard.
There's a lot more space there than, I can come up and speak.
I guess we are okay, we are fine, thanks. Motion.
Okay.
Mr. Baum, would you please make a
Yes.
motion?
I move to grant a variance from ACC 231001, Table A, Schedule of Bulk Controls to allow construction of a building with a rear setback of 15 feet where 30 feet is the minimum requirement.
Anyone in second?
I second.
Okay. Okay, going through the findings, I'm going to read the first one. Exceptional circumstances. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes or uses in the same zone. I think this would be a good classic example of exceptional.
Except that you have just seen that there are several other properties that Mr. Lee happens to own that also have exceptional shapes. And so this one can't be exclusively exceptional because there's another one right next door with the same
This is a
problem.
little bit more exceptional.
To you.
Okay. Any other comments on the exceptional circumstances? Practical difficulty and undue hardship.
I would say that anybody who builds on this property will have some hardships, but they will be self-imposed.
Yeah. Well, again, if you want to develop the property, I guess what they have proposed, it seems to be the only option. Unless
If
just
there
keep
should be
it
an option
vacant.
even.
Well, you could be vacant forever, but
There's
Oh,
nothing
it's-
wrong with that.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Well, you are not the property owner, you're saying
This
that.
is correct, right?
Okay. Preservation of equal property rights. Literal interpretation of these regulations would deprive the appellant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same zone and the same vicinity, while granting of the requested variance will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied to other properties in the same zone and the same vicinity.
Well, I think that he will have the privilege of blocking his neighbor, and he will have to give permission to his neighbor, he may or may not, and to keep him from being landlocked.
He's gonna make his, resolve that issue, I believe he mentioned that, and the neighbor is not here.
Well, special privilege, he's gonna have a yard, and the neighbor will not have a yard. I mean, that's a, I mean. I
Well, is the neighbor entitled to this yard?
No.
No. Okay. Absence of detriment. Is there any?
Well, obviously, we've heard that of the flooding, and even the prospective owner of this property said he would not put his system into the sanitary sewer until it was replaced because, so there is, right now, yes, absolutely. Detriment in terms
Is
of.
this area is being designated as a flooding zone, Mr. Cyrus? No.
Well, we're talking about sanitary sewer,
Yeah.
storm sewer.
Okay. Not of a general nature.
No, it's not.
Okay, it's not. Okay, are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Those of you in favor of this variance, please raise your hand. We got 3-2. You have the variance. Okay.
Well, we've heard it before, when they backed off. So.
Mr. Soros,
And
you
with
are
reason. So.
noting that who voted what, right? Okay. Also the recordings of it.
Yes, Paul said he,
Okay.
from the recording. Thank you.
Okay, our last case is case number 17. You guys need any break, or should we just?
No, let's go on. We need to.
Case number 1702C, property at 1 Westfield Place, Zone R3. Abraham Alasov is the appellant. Appellant is requesting a conditional use permit, and I have added from ACC 230702E, which talks about the conditional permits. And did you have some more, Mr. Cyrus, additional?
Yes, back in 2014, it looks like on.
No, I
oh,
just want to complete my sentence in
sorry.
here. Was there any other references to ACC besides the one I just read?
No.
Okay. To operate a bed and breakfast business in his home. Now you can make your comment.
Thank you. Back in 2014, you had address 469 Richland Avenue, which was James and Kathleen Fuller. And this was a request, a variance for B&B and a B2, and that was granted on November 12th of 2014. So that's all I have on that one.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the code office?
Yes, I do have a question. The changes to the code are most recent. I did pull up a copy of the new ordinance. It said it hasn't been codified. Does that mean that is or is not enforceable? I could have called somebody to City Hall, but they actually sent me this, and I didn't realize that that was going to be a question I was going to have, because it says on the city website it's not codified. So this is not law yet.
That's correct.
So
Why are we hearing?
then this case can't be looked at under the new ordinance, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I think codified means it's not in the code.
It's not in the code.
But it is still law.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
City
the ordinance
council
has been passed,
All right.
And we
it's done
passed the
its-
30 days.
That's past the 30 days.
Okay, so then
correct,
it's good.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank
Even
you for
the,
clarifying.
I couldn't find a date on the changes, but,
I don't have a copy with me. I'm
It's
sorry.
more than
Okay,
30 days
10.
ago.
It's more than,
did that right after that, a
Yes.
couple of weeks? Okay.
right.
And I have one more question, because this permit, as it states in the ordinance, for a bed and breakfast, you have to apply for a bed and breakfast permit. So my question is there a checklist or some kind of criteria established by the code office that will be for bed and breakfast?
we are working on that. Currently, we're using just the permitting for like rentals permit.
Okay. Thank you.
So are you saying that if we give him a conditional use permit, then you will go through the checklist with him?
He meets all the criteria of the zoning as far as parking. And it's just a one-bedroom, so we treat it as like a rental.
Right, so, but
That's correct.
rentals are inspected and checked for safety equipment and things like that?
The new law does not allow us to go in that direction. And we have not addressed that. The council has not addressed that part of the ruling.
Okay.
As far as inspection.
So you can rent to somebody temporarily and not guarantee their safety, whereas if you rent a longer term, you do have to make sure there are fire alarms and things like that?
That's correct.
Okay.
Would the appellant, Mr. Alasov, please come to the podium, state your name and your address for the record.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming tonight. My name's Abe Alasov, or Abraham Alasov, as I go by, or my legal name. I'm applying for a variance for, it's dubbed a bed and breakfast, but really, that's not what I'm, like, essentially doing, and I'll explain further. I list solely through Airbnb. That's all I want to do. That's all I have any desire to do. And for those who don't know or haven't researched it, Airbnb is essentially a broker between people wanting to rent and people who have a place to rent. Like the code officer director said, we have one room in our house that's extra, and on busy weekends, we open it up on the site to allow people that are coming in town, well, we did before we got the cease and desist, coming in town to rent a room. A lot of it was parents, some alumni, some professors coming in for conferences. Until we had the cease and desist, we had approximately 15 people stay with us. We had a 4.5 or 4.8 out of 5 of people that stayed with us. It was a very good experience. We made some extra money, got to introduce a lot of people first time coming into Athens, and it was just a good experience all around for everybody, the customer and us. I spoke to a couple, well, I spoke to my neighbors next door, actually. I think they're actually here tonight to speak as well, in 3 Westfield Place. When I had gotten the cease and desist, and I had called her, and I'm like, I explained what had happened, and I'd asked her, did you know that we had guests over? And she said, no, had no clue, but it was interesting that you bring it to my attention. And the reason why I want this variance is strictly, I want to help people coming into Athens have a more pleasant experience. Hotels are packed during the busy weekends, and I'm a local, born and raised, and I can tell them the place to eat. Like, I've had so many people that were happy with my recommendations on where to eat. We don't provide breakfast either. We literally provide a clean bed, clean towels, and a shower for them to stay, and then they have a key to our house to come and go as they please. And I guess this gets into some of the things that, rightfully so, that neighbors have, now that they're aware that they're probably thinking, and, oh, it's gonna be total anarchy, but what's happening is, we have a parking spot, we only have 1 bedroom, so there's gonna be no congestion with traffic. They're gonna be contained in our parking, or our driveway. It's 1 car, so it's not gonna increase traffic. When it comes to, and I think of this also as, I've had friends come over from out of town, colleagues that have came and stayed the night with me. And really, in my mind, there's no difference to this other than there being a monetary transaction here. There's no difference than if I have my uncle or whoever come stay in my house, or whoever, someone wanting to come in, or just advertising to let people stay in my house, or like couch surfing for free. What else? We had good reviews. So I guess that's. One last thing. In my neighborhood too, in our townhouse development, we have other people who do not live in their house. They rent out their house. I know, for instance, I forget the exact address, but one lady lives in Maryland and she rents out their house to students, and they've caused problems. I know that other neighbors would attest to that. But I live in my own house, and my wife and you saw us. We're keeping a close eye out on all this in our house. This is our personal residence, so we're not letting craziness happen. And I reserve the right through Airbnb, like if they're causing problems, to trashing the place, to say that they have to leave. That's all I'm asking for. I'm asking just to make a little extra money, give people coming into Athens a good experience as their time into Athens. Yeah.
I'm just curious, how do you make people know that this is available? Is there any kind of a place to advertise?
Yeah, Airbnb.
Okay.
This is, I guess, by code, I'm going for a B&B, like a bed and breakfast. But really, in the sense that we think about a bed and breakfast, this is not a bed and breakfast. I've been to bed and breakfasts, as I'm sure most of you have, and this is not a bed and breakfast. This is literally a clean bed and their own.
Just B, no B and B.
Yeah, just B.
Okay.
And they're coming in and they're staying. And Airbnb is this site that it started out of San Francisco.
Okay. That's what you were referring.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I list my site. I take pictures of my house. I had them up, like you can see the bedroom there, because it was in our basement, and our basement has essentially a second living room. So the second living room and the bedroom was theirs, and then the second bathroom was the guests for the time that they were there.
And you have no concern if, like, the strangers coming in your house? I mean, your uncle is different, you know.
Of
but
course,
when
of
you
course.
have-
And this is what's the beauty of the new technology when it comes to B&Bs and the other, or Airbnb and the other technologies and brokerage services, I guess, that are out there for this, is it's a peer-to-peer review system. If someone wants to rent with me or stay a weekend with me, they have a review history. It's kind of like anything else. Like you go on, if it doesn't have a review, or if it has a bad review, you're not likely to interact with that or purchase or whatever. So when customers come and see I have a good rating, they say, oh, that's great. And then on my end, I see, oh, well, they have 5 stars. They've stayed with so-and-so all across the country. They're very good people.
Okay.
I have no problem letting them into my home, especially with like my wife and our new infant daughter.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the appellant?
No.
No?
Oh, quick question or comment.
Yeah.
As a member of Airbnb, it is, I get their updates all the time, but they do require that you meet all city and municipal codes, and they have for many years.
Mhm.
You are aware of that?
Yes,
Okay.
and as I had a cease and desist. It's been now over a year, so this has been kind of a progression to get to this point, but I haven't been able to list for over a year for Airbnb. So yeah, I can't do it because I would be in violation of the code.
So
So that's why I'm coming here to ask you guys to please grant me a variance so I can do this in my owner-occupied house.
So you're only offering a bed and not breakfast?
Yeah.
Some do, so I guess my question then is, when people start, and so you offer no food whatsoever?
No, I mean, I've left out bottles of water for them, 2 bottles apiece, and then I've thought about putting a fridge down there if this ever becomes viable, maybe like a small fridge, like if they want to go out to eat, put something in the fridge, just like you would in a Holiday Inn or something. They usually have a small personal fridge. And to also bring up, this is expanding like very fast across the country, and there's been a lot of municipalities that are dealing with this, and I understand that sometimes it can be bad, but this is my own owner-occupied dwelling. I'm not running, like just leaving the house. I don't live in another state and renting it out. I'm physically in this residence. And I, like, in my townhouse, like, I share a wall with my neighbor, who I think, who I mentioned is here going to speak tonight. I'm not, I think, opposed to me, but she shares a room, and I mean, sometimes we hear what's going on in the other person's house. I know she's called me and let me know that my baby's been crying sometimes. So that's like how close that we are. And when I brought it to her attention, I'd done this multiple times, and this was a shock to her that I was even doing this. So, and we have a pretty good relationship, so I'm hoping that this doesn't change things.
Okay, thank you. You may be called back again, but for now, is there anyone who would like to speak on favor of this proposal? Anyone who would like to provide a general commentary?
Every man's free.
Again,
You're the next candidate to be on the board, I assume.
51 Madison Avenue, Eric Lee. It sounds to me like this is a situation that city council should probably eventually address where it's
They
not.
have done so.
They have already.
Okay.
Which is why it's before us
Yeah,
tonight.
it's not quite keeping up with the changing times, but.
Well, they have approved this.
They've approved it. It needs a conditional variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals, so it's just a process.
It sounds like a stopgap to, I mean, you guys know more than I do, but it sounds to me like if he has otherwise met the code requirements, then it seems that a conditional variance would be reasonable. So.
All right, thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Come to the podium, please. State your name and your address for the records, please.
Thank you, sir. My name is David Mott. I'm not sure my address is particularly relevant. Excuse me. I'm an attorney, and I'm here on behalf of my client, Westfield Place Homeowners Association.
On behalf of what?
Westfield Place Homeowners Association. The association officially opposes this conditional use permit. Westfield Place is a planned community development. It was developed as...
That's what I thought.
I'm sorry, it was developed as a planned unit, and every property in Westfield Place is subject to deed restrictions, including Mr. Alasov's. Those deed restrictions prohibit any commercial use of that property except for certain specified uses of professionals such as engineers, architects, people who commonly work from their home and who maintain a small home office. This is not directly a code issue, however, the deed restrictions do apply and the association opposes the permit on those grounds.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. I just can't form it yet.
I'll be around if you would like to recall me.
Well, tell me how the deed restrictions apply and how they don't.
Okay. At risk of being a stereotypical lawyer, what do you mean by how they apply and how they don't?
Well, okay, you say there are deed restrictions that would prevent anybody owning a house in Westfield Place from using their house for a commercial purpose.
Yes.
Okay, so that is strictly something that the association has to deal with and not the city?
Yes, it's not a city issue, it is an association issue.
So how would you and the association then deal with it?
How would you enforce that?
By an action for a permanent injunction. We would, hopefully it does not become necessary, we would sue Mr. Alasov. We would go before the Court of Common Pleas, and we would ask for a permanent injunction to enforce the deed restrictions and prevent operation of a bed and breakfast in his residence.
Is there a contract that the owners of those properties signed to that, to what you just said?
No, it's much more broad than that.
Okay.
Before the properties were sold, the developer filed of record deed restrictions that apply to every lot, and they're incorporated into the deed of every lot, and they're all bound by the same restrictions.
Okay.
So in terms of business enterprise, what of those people that own property and move away and rent them out, is that considered a business?
Under the deed restrictions, it is not. The exact terminology is no business activities shall be conducted upon any residence lot, and no advertising signs shall be displayed. It lists a number of accessory permitted uses, an office or studio of, say, physician, dentist, engineer, architect, provided that not more than 1/3 of the floor space is devoted to the professional's endeavor alone.
So rental property is not considered an exception?
Rental property
It's
is
not a
still,
business, is it?
is
Rental
still,
property.
It is a business, but it's treated differently.
it's a residential use and not a business
Okay,
activity.
I just wanted to make sure it was clear.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me there are two separate questions here.
Yes, I
One
think
is
you're
that we
right.
deal with is, does it meet the city code requirements?
Right.
And then a separate one that deals with your restrictions on the planned unit development.
That is correct. My comment does not directly apply to the city code requirements. However, given that Mr. Alisaf is in the association, and the association has an interest in how he uses his property, the association thought it wise to bring it to your attention as you're making your decision.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Is the code office looks into those things, Mr. Soroy?
No, we do
Okay.
not.
No.
All right, thank you, sir. You may be seated. Any other witness in opposition? Please state your name and your address for the record.
Hi, I'm Kelly Davidson. I'm the owner of 3 Westfield Place, and I live right next door to Abe. So he did bring it to my attention. We did notice cars, but we were thinking, oh, they're friends or what have you. We didn't know who they were, my husband and I. And of course, when he brought it to my attention, what was going on with the city, and the cease and desist and so on and so forth, I immediately became concerned. When I purchased my property, I purchased the home based on the deed restrictions and based on the kind of living environment that Westfield Place provided for me and the safety and security. I do not feel comfortable living next door to a bed and breakfast or a bed in bed, whatever you want to call it. I do not feel comfortable. You don't know who's necessarily going to end up there or what they may bring, whether it's rodents or firearms or what have you. You just don't know. And so I don't feel comfortable with that. And so I speak in opposition of Mr. Alizov's appeal or request.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Thank you. You may be seated. Anyone else who would like to speak in opposition?
Hi, my name is Linda Rice. I live at 19 Westfield Place, and I also wanted to speak in opposition of this. In our deed restrictions, this is something that, as a homeowner, I take very seriously in selecting a home. Westfield Place, if you're familiar with the subdivision, is not a high-end subdivision. So these are affordable homes, and with the affordable within that home, that price range, to be able to afford a home of that quality with these deed restrictions is very influential in my choice to live there. As the Westfield attorney stated, and it's number 5 in our bylaws, or not bylaws, but our deed restrictions, no business activities shall be conducted upon any residence lot, and it goes on as he had read. So I think that we have worked hard to create a sense of neighborhood and community in Westfield Place. That's important to us. We have meetings a couple of times a year. We have a HOA website where we're able to keep up to date with what's going on. We had a fence cleaning party when things get out of shape in our subdivision. We either do the work ourselves or we have a meeting and then we subcontract that so that we keep the neighborhood, again, of what is quite a low to mid-range housing, to keep it the quality that as neighbors we really want a neighborhood feel that we're looking for. So I think to know our neighbors and to have it as a neighborhood type of community is very important, and the people coming and going into homes that we do not know is not in the character of the neighborhood that I was purchasing into and felt were supported by these deed restrictions that we have.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Alasad, could you please come to the podium to maybe address these questions? And also, have you ever had any guests under this code that you're requesting, have you had any people come into your house as of now?
No, he can't.
No, I can't.
But you haven't had any?
No, I can't have people come into my house because that'd be in violation of the code.
Okay, okay.
But perhaps you did before you were told to cease and desist?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
why, because that's when there was a discussion about it, and I brought it up before council, saying this is what I was doing, and,
Okay.
um,
So,
yeah.
so it has been done
It has been done.
before it hasn't been done?
Yes, yes.
And, okay, so you know the process?
I'm not here to argue with my neighbors. Ultimately, I want to live in harmony. But something I just want to state for the record while they're here, and just think about this in our own home division. We have 2 Westfield Place that's rented out. The owner lives in Maryland. That house is, just last year, I know that me and Kelly were talking about how just the trash in the yard, how the owner that doesn't live there causes it to run in shambles. I personally live in this home, and I want what's safe for all of us too. And honestly, to paint a picture that I would want anything less, it just bothers me because I know that there are people that own property in our house, in our division, that don't live there, could care less. They just out for a buck. But I'm out to, yes, make money, but at the same time, I want a good experience for myself, my wife, my child. I don't want, for you guys, I don't want the problem there. And I think that if you guys are coming at me full force, I think you have bigger fish to fry when it comes to rentals in our own development. For example, 2 Westfield Place, and I know I'd spoken to the previous homeowner association president, and he hated that problem, and that's, I think, it made one of the reasons why he moved out. But I don't know. Maybe come talk to me. I'll come talk to you. I just don't want this to.
You may want to address us
Yeah.
rather than your neighbors.
Yeah. Well, that is the rebuttal to that.
Okay.
So that's my rebuttal.
Okay, I guess I read somewhere today that rental in your R3 zone is okay as long as it's not transitory. That means people are coming and going.
That is
Right.
the point.
That's the point,
Yes,
yeah.
they are transitory, they are
Yeah,
transient.
They are, that's what I'm saying,
Yes,
but
okay.
rental for a year, that's okay in
Yes.
this zone.
Well,
That's what I
a
was-
rental that's more than 1 month, 30 days.
Yeah,
That's
that's my
the-
point. I'm
that's
saying
the-
rental is
sure.
okay in this
Right.
zone, but coming and going is not,
The kicker is this is a planned unit development.
Right.
Which we don't have many of in Athens.
Right.
And that creates a slightly different condition.
Right.
And the question in terms of the harmony, and use the term harmony, it's used also in the code. The harmony of the area of a planned unit development is a little bit different than your normal R3 areas.
Right.
Well, if the housing development or the homeowner association is looking to litigate me against this and waste their resources on that, I'll withdraw my appeal, just for the fact that I don't want to sue my neighbors or get into a law or be sued by my neighbors and drag that out. But
So did you say you want to withdraw? Oh,
yeah, I'll withdraw this.
Okay. Then
Thank you.
So we're
case
done?
closed. Thank you.
Okay.
And I guess that's all we have to say, right? Go ahead.
If I may, for the point of clarification, council has addressed bed and breakfasts. The code does not address Airbnbs. I just want to make sure we understand that.
Yes,
Right,
we do.
Airbnb is just a way of doing a
That's
bed
right.
and breakfast.
So the
It's-
terminology is what
Right.
Yes.
is very important.
But the question is really transient
Right.
versus more permanent,
Correct.
whatever
But
you call it.
For the sake of the
Yeah.
viewers, because I do have some other issues that
Right,
we don't recognize Airbnbs
right.
in the code.
Yes.
I guess one of my concerns is, I read through the new ordinance and then the changes a week or so later, whatever. And it specifically says there'll be a permit process for bed and breakfast. And I guess I assumed that there would be some kind of a checklist or criteria separate, but you're saying that council hasn't addressed that and council, this,
Well, they have not directly appointed or established a checklist. So we've gone through the office, through the law director, and we're addressing it with the rental permit.
Okay. But
Okay,
you are addressing it in
Yes.
some way. Thank you.
and so that would be, I mean, the checklist for rental properties comes from the code office. Am I wrong in thinking that? So,
No, no. you're
no,
correct.
it was established by city council,
The checklist? No.
Not the checklist.
not the checklist.
No.
But the checklist for the bed and breakfast would be, or the criteria would be
The
established
criteria,
by.
correct.
Council.
Okay, and from the criteria, you would establish a checklist.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just making sure I got all my A's.
No, that's okay. It's fine. It's a little confusing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Disposition of the minutes from December 13, 2016 minutes. I,
Move to approve the minutes.
second?
have
You
to
made
have
the
a vote.
motion, you moved, okay.
You have to come to a vote.
Vote,
Okay, that's, do we need a second?
You have to second.
yeah.
Who?
I thought you did.
No, I said, who wants to the second?
second.
I don't
I
think.
second.
Okay.
We all second.
Ed made the
We all
motion,
second.
and all in favor?
Yes,
Okay. And unless there's any objection, we adjourn the meeting.
yes,
Wonderful.
good.
And